Hello and welcome to Unsourced Wall. My name is Elvis and this is the first episode. Now, this is going to be more of a practice run. There are some things that I still need to work out on this end, but hope you'll bear with me, and this might not even be that long. But thankfully, there was some stuff that came out this week that I probably want to talk about, which is uncommon for comics. Sometimes there are incredibly dry weeks with absolutely nothing to get into, but that's not the case this week. We have two big events that happened this week. First, there was CinemaCon, that pretty much every comic movie that no one gives a shit about or has any faith in was at, so that's going to be fun. And also, just today, the Eisner Awards gave out their list of nominees for this year. And just like every other year, there are some things that really do deserve to be on there and some things that absolutely do not. But first, let's get into the Eisner Awards, because what kind of comic podcast would this be if we started with all the movie stuff? My last one, honestly, because we always did that as a joke, just start with this stuff. But I'm going to try something different this time around. Alright, Eisner Awards. I'm not going to pretend that I am the most well-rounded comic book reader. I'm not. There are some things that I have read that kind of cover, I think, almost all the bases, but I'm not going to act like the majority of my comic book reading hasn't been from DC and Marvel. It's not anymore. I hardly read any of the series that are coming out right now, maybe 3 from DC and absolutely nothing from Marvel. But the Eisner Awards is something that we can get into because it concerns two or maybe even like a handful of comics that are on that list that really, really strike a chord with me in both good ways and bad ways. To start with the bad ways, Mr. Miracle from Tom King and Mitch Gerads has been nominated for Best Limited Series. It's part of the reason why Tom King has been nominated for Best Writer, and Mitch Gerads has been nominated for Best Pencilist and Inker. And it is by far one of the worst things I have ever read, especially with the New Gods. And that's a pretty high bar, given that the New Gods have been in some really crappy things. They have been in more bad stories than they have been in good stories, and that's not a lie. I know that people are going to point to Simonson Orion or Grant Morrison's take or the original stuff, but that's pretty much where it ends. And every other single thing that DC has tried to do with them has been either boring or terrible. And the magic of Mr. Miracle from Tom King and Mr. Gerads is that it is both at either point in each issue. It can be boring, it can be messy, it can be lazy, it can be it can be just insulting and uncreative. And that is just so fantastic if you really, really want to read something that is just complete trash, you know. And it's shocking, honestly. Well, it's not shocking that it's on this list, but it was shocking at the time, and in retrospect, that there was so much pre-release hype about this book. That's something that still sticks with me, is hearing all these old creators just really praise this book before releasing it. It's a masterpiece. It's going to be recognized as a masterpiece in the future, or it's one in the making right now. And there was even one comic shop owner online who was giving away free issues of the first issue before when it premiered, and because they believed in it. And that's just like so weird to me now, 8 issues in, when it's just been like the worst comic month to month, or and that's not counting the skip month at all either. It is just out there. Tom King is in a rut with this book. Each issue he repeats stuff and things that I think he thinks are clever. I'm not going in saying that Tom King is just phoning it in. I think he thinks that this book is doing something interesting, something new, something smart, but it's just all things we've done, and that we've seen before. I know that maybe a few of the listeners, if anyone listens to this, honestly, will get this, but Earth 2 is probably like one of the best examples of this. When one of the writers, after Tom Taylor, Wilson, I believe, I can't remember his name, it was such a horrible run, I don't even want to remember his name. He would go on an interview after every issue came out, and he would expound upon it and talk about how he was thinking all these different things and what he was trying to do, and the issue would just be the most generic piece of shit ever. And that's pretty much what Mr. Miracle is at this point. But that's not to say that Tom King isn't nominated for something worthwhile in this year anyway. He is, because Tom King is not a bad writer, I don't think. Tom King can do really great stuff. For example, the thing he's nominated for today, for this year, is the Elmer Fudd Batman issue that was part of that's part of DC's Warner Brothers cartoon crossovers, and that was one of the best ones. Like, no doubt, it was able to capture Elmer Fudd's dialogue and the comedic beats of Elmer Fudd so well, while Lee Weeks' art, in contrast to Mitch Gerads' just lazy copy and paste bullshittery, Lee Weeks' art was able to capture just a great atmosphere of Gotham and the whole dive slum nature of it all, but also helping to aid the comedic timing of the panels. It was really an experience, and I'm glad that it was nominated for Best Humor Issue or Comic. But on the other hand, for a writer that I think is more consistent, Mark Russell was nominated for the Flintstones, as well as that was also for limited series. That was part of the Hanna-Barbera and DC reboot comics, and it was pretty great. It was honestly one of the best things I've read, even though I didn't like pretty much all of it. There's some things I didn't like of that group of books. It was definitely on the top. It's not my favorite. I know I just said that it was on the top, but sometimes you can like something more even if you know it's not that strong. Scooby Apocalypse was one of the ones that I felt did a really great job capturing the characters, even if the plot wasn't that tight and was honestly rather dragged out, even now. So those are two books that I really felt deserve these nominations, at least just from what I've read. I know that, again, there are things that on this list that I haven't read, but I've heard so many great things about, like Pope Hats. That is the number 5 of that series is being nominated for Best Single Issue, and Pope Hats I've heard so much great things about, and I really need to get into that. So another great thing about the Eisners is that you also get like a great rubric of things to maybe you've heard about, but now you're kind of thinking maybe I should get into. I really was planning on getting into Pope Hats, but also for limited series with the Flintstones, which I think is genuinely great, and Mr. Miracle, which has all this weird hype about it. It's honestly a pretty stacked category, because I just remembered right now, I had read this list in the morning. X-Men Grand Design is also being nominated. X-Men Grand Design is probably one of my favorite Marvel comics of the year. Not that they were that strong this year. I really don't think so. But X-Men Grand Design is one of those comics that really, really makes me think about how admirable some comic creators can be when working with continuity and this whole slew of chronology that Big Two comics, especially, or those trying to imitate them, or just K comics in general, will be able to build up, because Grand Design tries really hard to create a singular creative vision out of whatever timeline there is to the X-Men publishing wheel. This whole slew of events and retcons and twists and plot narratives and beats that just came out of every other creative influence that just was put onto this franchise. So Grand Design just is really all Ed Piskor's definitive take on the X-Men. It's his vision. I'm not saying it's the definitive take. I'm saying it's his definitive take. And that's what I love about Kate Comics sometimes, because you get, like, sometimes you can really get a creator who loves something and wants to just leave their stamp on it. They want to form it into something that really harkens back to them. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. But when it's good, it really feels like you're seeing a love letter to just the idea of it all. But yeah, these are really some really good nominations to balance out the complete horribleness of Mr. Miracle. Something that I had read, but I didn't expect to be nominated, that I had read was recently. Was The Wicked plus the Divine by Kieran Gillen and Jamie McKelvey, mainly because I had read them I had binged them along with some other people, and that book shocked me because I am not a Gillen fan. I'm the most I've ever enjoyed from Gillen has been like Uber, and that's it. And Uber I enjoy because, well, you know, it's a slightly more thought out gore comic than most, and so that I'm not gonna say I don't like gore, I like horror movies and all that stuff, but it's slightly more thought out. So you get a plot with the gore, and that's pretty much all you really need. But it's interesting. It was an interesting book. So, but stuff like Young Avengers or, oh god, Phonogram was terrible. I read it based solely on the hype of it all. The promotional material was able to really sell to me, and it was like 3 days of reading that I will never get back. It was terrible. But Wicked plus the Divine, it's not great. I don't think that if it weren't for how, to put it better, to make it more succinct, what really appealed to me about Wicked plus the Divine is that it is able to unfold its plot threads, and it succeeds so well. It's so thought out that while the plot may harken back to some of the really, really, really stupider stuff of Phonogram or Young Avengers, the plot is able to really carry me forward. I don't really care about the characters. I care about what the characters are caught up in more than them as something to engage with. I'm engaged with the plot and the story and not the characters, if that makes any sense. I know that sometimes that happens with other things with me. I just love how the story is developing, and so I'm glad it's nominated for Best Continuing Series. I think it deserves that because it's been so consistent, and well, it's wrapping up right now, so it'd be one hell of a note to go out with. But I haven't read most of the other stuff on this. I really should. Maybe before next year, I should really put an effort, if this lasts until next year at least, to be more well-rounded before the Eisners. But let's move on to the real meat. What was out this week? Because I'm honestly just pushing off the movie stuff because that's just going to be a whole mess of things that everyone is going to say is bad or not. But what was out this week? I honestly did not read anything this week other than just one-off issue that I hope isn't going to get like any groans. Because, like I said, I don't read that much now. I'm still interested in what the developments of stuff that is happening, but Marvel, DC, I read a few Image comics, but only because of other creators, like David Lapham and Stray Bullets, and I love that comic, and I love Mage, so I'm reading those, but that's mainly by circumstance than a preference toward Image. So one thing I did read was Mark Andreyko's Jeepers Creepers tie-in comic that premiered this week, and it is honestly really entertaining. But on the flip side, it's also kind of disappointing. I mean, because now I'm not going to touch the controversy behind this movie series. that's not the place of this, and it would just be wrong. And first episode, that's pretty weighty stuff. I'd rather have like a guest on before touching any of that stuff. But the movie series as itself, as just a movie series, it went out with a whimper. I don't think there's going to be a fourth one after the third one was so dragged out and uninspired. It was nothing but an hour and a 20-minute long prequel prologue. It could have been all condensed to like one title crawl or one scene. That's how much nothing happened in that. Or you could have just cut off, not done it entirely, because that movie was supposed to lead into the fourth one, but all it did was just say, "All right, something's happened," and that's it. It really was a big nothing, and it was direct to video. It had like 1 day in theaters. That's probably all they could milk from it before reviews started coming out saying it was horrible anyway. But yeah, so this series by Mark Andreyko actually does answer some questions. Actually, does move the plot forward, the meta plot, more than like the plot of the people in that town, and it does connect to part 3, the prologue of part 3, which sounds weird because you're talking about prologue to the prologue. The prologue to part 3 was set in the 50s, and it features the Creeper getting his arm chopped off, and the arm is pretty much MacGuffin in part 3, and even though it does nothing that we ever learn about or care about. But in this comic seems to be touching upon that somewhat, as someone else is looking for answers to the Creeper's origin story, and it actually answers it. It does in the first issue. It's like, all right, this is it. Now it's not like a definitive this is where it came from, but it's more of a this is what it was doing at this point in time, regardless of whether this is where it came from or this is its origin. And so that's a bit disappointing, because if you read it, and I enjoyed it, and I suggest you read it, because if you don't want to support the franchise and because of what was going on, then that's fine. I enjoyed it. I'll probably continue to read it until I stop enjoying it, which with kind of comics you can never tell. But I really hope that it can continue and hopefully tie in a bit more and tighten some of those loose threads of story. Sorry about that. I haven't been on radio in a long time, talking to a mic. So yeah, that was a rather well done issue. That's pretty much the only thing I read. And it was better than most of the stuff I read just on a whim, honestly. Especially for a tie-in comic. I think the last tie-in comic I read was a Pumpkinhead tie-in comic. Alright, because that's also coming out. It was just last week or the week before. And that was so disappointing, because it's just a mess. The most interesting part of it was the Haggis origin story backup, which is unnecessary, but it was the only thing that was actually felt Pumpkinheadish. But I guess, yeah, Jeepers Creepers #1, that was a really good one. Just plain, it's standard, it's nothing great, but it's entertaining enough. And I guess I really can't push this off any longer. So I'm gonna have to get into it. Let's start with Venom, CinemaCon's most probably MVP of CinemaCon, mainly because of the turnaround that it endured after that trailer. Because the first teaser came out and everyone was hitting on it, and now this trailer comes out and now people are just laughing at it, and that's a step up in my book. I'm interested in it. It doesn't look interesting. I'm just interested in it because it could be either boring and generic and somewhat okay, or it could be completely terrible and boring and just horrible and a waste of time. And that's what interests me about it. I'm probably going to see it. I have a bit of hope. I think that even though, let's be honest, what makes Venom unique is the story, is the trajectory of his story. if you cut off the first part of that trajectory and start right where they're starting with the trying to do good even though you're a horrible alien goo monster, you're a dime a dozen. Some people have already compared it to The Darkness or Spawn, and they wouldn't be wrong. It's that whole genre of books that were coming out at that time, or that were being influenced by like anti-heroes and movies and stuff like that to find footing in comics. But that whole starting off as a villain and then like having this whole lasting consequence arc that really makes Venom special. So right now, you could slap the term "The Darkness" onto this trailer, and nothing would change. You're like, oh, I guess there's scientists studying the darkness. So I mean, that's pretty much it. I'm sorry for Mark Silvestri or something, because now he can't make a Darkness movie. But jury's still out on which way. They tried to reboot it with that really horrible Image comic that's coming out right now. So that was very TV or focused. It felt like True Calling, really. If anyone's seen that, I'd like to do Screw Show, which is fine. It was so weird to see Zach Galifianakis in that, playing a more serious character. Really early in his career. But yeah, Venom. I'm probably gonna see it. I know people are down on it. I'm giving it an honest chance. It could be kind of okay. I remember Power Rangers, the film last year, and that movie was really striding the line between generic and entertaining. And I think it fell squarely on entertaining. Some parts of it were generic, and some parts were a bit weirdly changed, but it really landed on its feet, and I hope Venom does too. Besides, I really hope that someone ADRs Tom Hardy like they did in Dark Knight Rises, because my God, his accent sounds like the worst, like Eastern Middle East New York, that area place ever. It's really much a caricature. I know Tom Hardy is trying, and it's just funny, and I'll probably watch it just to hear more of that accent, of that American accent. It's amazing. So after Venom, we have more news on X-Men Dark Phoenix, which is now dropping the X-Men brand. It's now just being released as, I guess, Dark Phoenix, which, why would they? Well, I guess this is their last hurrah, Their X-Men, they want to keep Apocalypse the last one. Maybe. This is my theory, that Apocalypse ended on such a good note. I liked Apocalypse. I know people didn't. I thought it was really fun to see Bryan Singer trying to make a giant, adventurous blockbuster. It's definitely not his wheelhouse, but it was a fun attempt. There was worse movies. I can name like several dozen than this. I mean movies in general. I mean comic movies. Recent comic movies of like the last 10 years. I can name worse than Apocalypse, which was good. I liked it. Oscar Isaac was great in it. So I have hope for Dark Phoenix. I want to see more of Cody Smith-Fee, who was Nightcrawler. He needed more scenes in Apocalypse. I think he's great. He's a great successor to Alan Cumming. But yeah, the logo came out. It's really something. We get 2 Dark Phoenix movies in our lifetimes, and one of them has to shake out, right? One of them has to shake out. But hey, moving on, because like I said, CinemaCon is just one of those conferences. They just release logos. Sometimes, like with Venom, they use the conference as a bouncing point off to like get more attention. I know Sony really wanted to waylay the criticisms from the really bland teasers, so they just released it anyway. But a lot of these won't. So we also got Aquaman, starring Jason Momoa and Amber Heard, among others. I know Willem Dafoe's in it. And we got some we actually got some description of the sizzle reel for that, involving Aquaman himself fighting stuff off on a submarine and catching so I guess a knife or something. I hear a couple of reports. I hear knife or spear or sword even with his bare hands like that, pointy end first, and also that Black Manta looks straight out of the comics, and which is fine. You know, I can't wait to see first look at Black Manta. Black Manta. I keep my lisp. I'm sorry. Keep saying Manta. Black Manta, because he is a great villain, and even though I'm not impressed with Jason Momoa's acting ever, I've never been impressed with it ever. In Stargate Atlantis, I couldn't stand him, and like that was maybe one of his mid roles. Like he wasn't. He's been worse than Stargate Atlantis, and I couldn't stand him in that. But you know, it's nice. It's nice to see that Juan is taking care into this production. So it might be bad. People will be biased against it immediately anyway, because it's like the last of like the Zack Snyder era left standing. So anything to do with like reshoots or anything, people have shouted like, you know, there's a leak in the boat about it, which is I mean understandable. WB doesn't know when to really step back at all. Like Suicide Squad was never going to be good. Even with the scenes that we know existed that aren't out, it would have been a very rushed and sloppy movie, but it was made worse after their meddling. And Aquaman, James Wan, I don't like his movies that much. I think that his movies, mostly horror, were just okay. Even he was involved in the first Saw, and people always call it the best Saw, but it's still just okay. It's like the only thing Saw 1 has over any other Saw is that the plot twist isn't as horribly stupid as all the other ones. That's it. It has the same style as the other ones, multiple flashbacks, really redundant scenes, all this stuff. Aquaman, I hope it's good. The sizzle reel sounds great. If the tone is right, like obviously they're more focused on action. And, you know, all the actors seem really enthusiastic, including the person playing Black Manta, who I really, really want to say his name, but I do not trust myself, so I'm going to look it up and just say the first name. All right. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II did it. All right. Who's great. Now this is a guy I love and stuff, so, and he's been enthusiastic on social media, just really going at it, so. Hopefully they release the trailer soon, and you know, with the whole emphasis on water and all that stuff, and the Atlantean effects, they'll probably take a while for that anyway. But I'm patient. Shazam, from the guy who directed Annabelle Origin, I forget what, maybe Annabelle Awakening. I can't remember what the hell that movie was called. I think Lights Out, maybe. Who the hell knows? The main takeaway from Shazam wasn't even from CinemaCon. It's that they've been casting actors reportedly for the New 52 Shazam family, the adult versions of like of Billy's foster siblings, and which honestly is really exciting, because even though they're not having Black Adam in there, that was one of the best scenes for me, and you can never tell what's going to get a sequel or not. And Shazam, going into Shazam, the director and the writers have to know that they need to showcase it. And so this is a really great showcase moment. But they also said that at the Shazam part of the conference, that it is going to be the first of DC's movies that are going to start pivoting toward a family-friendly, all-ages kind of feel toward them. Which is good news, I guess. Honestly, just pivoting toward just making good, solid solo movies, I think is the future, and it was the past. Superhero movies, just make a solid solo movie. There's no point to try to see everything else. That's what I liked about Black Panther. That's what I liked about Wonder Woman. And those weren't like fantastic end all be all movies. They just feel like them now because they're so about themselves. I know Black Panther a little bit less so, but the core of it was solely about itself and its character and its world. There wasn't this need for doing much else or really going out there and weakening the core of that movie. Right? What else was there? Oh, awesome! We're finally getting new information about M. Night Shyamalan's Glass, the third part of the Unbreakable trilogy. Because I want to talk about it. I know it's not based on a comic. It has nothing to do with fucking comics, but it's honestly that series has been one of the best superhero-related movies other than Ang Lee's Hulk. And I will probably need to say that I think Ang Lee's Hulk is one of the best comic movies ever made. It's one that really captures the sense of being cinematic and being a really well-rounded out movie. I know people will hate it for other reasons, but honestly, that's what it is to me. And that's what Unbreakable was to me as well. Those two movies really pushed at what superhero movies and the divide that we still see, I guess, between superhero movies and something that is taken a bit more cautiously, a bit more seriously, a bit more something that could actually really win a more acclaim, more serious claim. I know that sounds like, oh, trying to mature or some shit, but you're not gonna see that energy in like Thor 2 or Thor Ragnarok, which are just meant to be just laugh out like riots, and that's not bad. But I enjoy that these also exist. And Split was a nice surprise. It was well made, little thriller / supervillain origin movie, and so Glass is gonna be M. Night's take on the confrontation, the clash between these characters, the supervillain and superhero. So that's gonna be fun. The first promotional art shows all three of the main characters: Bruce Willis as David Dunn, Samuel L. Jackson as Mr. Glass, obviously, and Jane McAvoy as Kevin Crumb, the Beast, or the Horde. Why would they give him two supervillain code names? M. Night has this complication fetish, I guess. There's always different things that he needs to overcomplicate here and there of some of his movies. I mean, he's called the Beast and the Horde. Both are suitable supervillain code names. He has both. So just call him Crumb. Let's call him Crumb from now on. But yeah, the promotional art is great. It's one of the things that M. Night does in all movies, but it stands out most in Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, and where he's used to color, like in Sixth Sense, red is the color of of life, death, emotion, that kind of thing. And in Unbreakable, the colors are like their identifier comic book colors: purple, orange, and green. And the Orange Man in Unbreakable was the villain of that piece, at least the most prominent physical villain of that piece. And in this promotional art, you see David in green and Samuel L. Jackson in purple, and Crumb is like shirtless and he's kind of bathed in orange. And so that kind of harkens back to M. Night's original plan that this character was going to be in the first Unbreakable, which is kind of funny because you always hear these complaints that superhero origin movies always do that thing where the villain is the mirror of the heroes, either in philosophy or just outright power set. So if that had happened, Unbreakable would have lost some points with me in terms of doing things different, because that would have fallen into the same trap, since Michael Crumb, or I keep saying Kevin Michael Crumb, I have no idea that's his middle name. Maybe I'm thinking of Kevin Michael Richardson or something. But Crumb and David Dunn, they would have the same power set. Just one is evil and crazy, and one is the hero. So But that's was nice. And Glass's sizzle reel description was a scene of these three characters being taken care of in a group session. I'm guessing by a psychiatrist about why they think that they're supervillains and superheroes caught in this battle. So it's interesting. We're starting from, even though people expected XSplit to be like this grand epic fight, even if it was small scale. Even the fight in Unbreakable between the Orange Man and David was really powerful and impactful and emotional and really well executed. We're starting from, and so that people would have been understandable to expect something similar here between Kevin and David. They're really just starting from a weird place. Who knows? Will they be in this hospital with this psychiatrist the entire movie? Is this that part, like, is it going to be like a flashback and in medias res type of thing? I wouldn't put it past M. Night. And honestly, even if I did want David to be put in a more standard plot of tracking down Kevin than having a fight, it would be interesting to see how that plays out. I would be a little disappointed, but after Unbreakable and XSplit both being really solid, of course Unbreakable I think is great and iconic in terms of superhero movies, and XSplit was just really fun. It was just a really fun movie. I hope that I have faith that Glass is going to be still entertaining, no matter what the plot ends up being. But yeah, let's see. Is there anything else? Is there really anything else going on? All right. This is the weekend that Avengers Infinity War comes out. So really,
Sorry about that. It's minor microphone hiccup, and it's been happening. It was pretty much the entire episode where the microphone was messing up. So I'm sorry if it sounded a little bit scratchier than I was intending. But like I was saying, Avengers: Infinity War is coming out this week, and I have to say I am probably gonna see it. I'm probably gonna write a review on it, even though I have been, among at least my group of friends and people I know, one of the biggest detractors of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not that I'm saying that I hate all the movies. I was just praising Black Panther a bit ago. But out of like the 14 movies they're really getting out there and promoting, like, we made 14 movies in 10 years. It's going to be amazing. This whole combination, I think only like 5 of them were any good. And that's being rather forgiving of some of the things in that top 5 or top 6 movies that I would put on there. But in the it looks like it might be fun. There's some I'm not gonna go into spoilers. I've been spoiled. I'm not gonna lie. I've been spoiled about it. I don't run from spoilers. If spoilers happen and like, okay, I saw that spoiler, I'm gonna dig deeper into the trench of spoilers, because like that's me. That's what I don't mind it. I'm always more of like, how is executed? I know what happened, but was it executed well? Was it executed badly? Because that's what would make me emotionally engaged. Not like, oh no, this character is gonna do that and that. No, like, how did the actor do it? How did the actor portray this? How did the scoring and the director frame and create the atmosphere of this? So that's why I'm going to see it. I've been spoiled, and there's a lot of stuff in this movie that I think could be really cool if done well. Like, really cool. So that's why I'm going to see it. I'm going to see it and write a review on it. I'm going to put it up on Unsourced wall, the blog, not here. Probably talk about it here if this episode goes well. I'll probably talk about it here as well. But yeah, those are my thoughts right now on Avengers Infinity War. And so let's move on to some Twitter questions, because I did put out the call. I didn't want to come into this blind. We had our 2 Twitter questions were, what was the last comic I really enjoyed? Now, the last comic I really enjoyed, that's a hard question. Like, it honestly is. What does really enjoy even mean in this context? I can like a comic, like I really can. Like I said, the last comic I liked was just the other day, Jeepers Creepers. I mentioned that it's the only comic I've really read lately, but I'm gonna go with something like that really speaks like to like the heart of me. Stray Bullets, Sunshine and Roses. I think issues 34, 33. One of those is this story arc has been going on for 3 years at this point, so it's one of those. But it was a recent issue, and that issue is probably everything I think Stray Bullets could be, is as a series. It is Coen Brothers by way of Tarantino, like early Tarantino and early Coen Brothers. It is a crime comic that, unlike no other, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but then it takes itself deadly seriously. It is fun, it is funny, it is dark, it is sad, it is wild. It's a roller coaster ride, and this issue is like this issue that I'm talking about was the perfect beat to it. I'm not even lying, this story arc has been going on for 35, 36 issues now, and while the normal length of a Stray Bullet story arc is averaging out to at least 8, so this has been a crazy story arc, and it's been a lot of really dark and depressing moments. And this issue was, I'm not gonna spoil it because I really want people to read this series, but this issue was like the most uplifting little thing I read recently, and I found this like, I know this story arc has been going on for 3 years, and I'm tired to death in some places, but this makes it worthwhile. And so if you really want to get into this comic, there's trades out for all the other story arcs, but this particular story arc, its first trade comes out just next week, and I can't recommend it enough. It's the perfect entry point for at least Stray Bullets as a whole. It gives you like Stray Bullets flavor without spoiling all the other story arcs that come before it, because it's a prequel. It's actually a prequel story arc, and it collects 8 issues, $20. So that's a really good fucking deal. Other than that, the next question I had, the last question I had actually, was what was the first comic that made me fall in love with comics in general? And the answer to that is J.M. DeMatteis's Brooklyn Dreams. It's not the first comic I read. That was it had to have been The Flash number 180 or something like that. The first appearance of Axel Walker Trickster from Jeff Johns' run. And that was my first comic. And after that was Crisis on Infinite Earths and Batman the Dark Knight Returns, all just whatever I could get at a public library. And one time, I think I was maybe 8 or 9, I got Brooklyn Dreams at the public library because I was a latchkey kid, and I had the all access library card. I can get movies, rated R books, like the mature books, not like erotic or some bullshit, but like adult books, for like college students or something like that, because I would hang out there and get these books and read them at home while I did my homework and all that stuff. And I picked up J.M. DeMatteis's Brooklyn Dreams, and it was, to my 8 or 9-year-old mind, the most beautiful thing I ever read, and it still is. It still is beautiful. It's a beautiful book. It's about self-discovery. It's about teenage angst, but it's done in such a practiced and ordered and loving way about teenage angst. It's the best teenage angst story I've ever read, because it does it without thinking about it, without any kind of self-aware or self-deprecation. And so that's what makes it so lovely. It's about Brooklyn. New York is really close and dear to my heart, and is so relatable to me. And it's apparently like J.M. DeMatteis's most personal book as well. And one day I hope to meet him, and I hope to get him to sign my copy of the paperback edition, because like it really did change my life as I grew up and was able to understand more and more of the context, because it made such an impression. But when you're a kid, you don't understand what that impression means. It's just like, all you feel is like that foresight, like I read something and it made me feel all this craziness and all this emotion. And then when you're older, you're like, oh wait, this is why. Because you're able to understand more of what the characters went through your own life. And it was just so, it was that moment for me. And then like comics can really, really hit you. And I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm not rambling. But anyway, that's pretty much our 2 questions, and that wraps up this episode. Thank you, Medea, and thank you, Eggmat, for your questions. You can, they're my Twitter followers, and if you have a question, and you have a Twitter, or you have a comment, or you want me to discuss something, any kind of prompt, any kind of subject, you can tweet me as well. I'll post the link to my Twitter account in the description, as well as a link to the Twitter account of the person who made this temporary cover art for this podcast. I plan to commission them as well for real life full-size cover art that better captures the kind of feeling I'm trying to go for here. So that should be up soon, hopefully by the next time I record another episode. Thank you for listening if you have, and sorry about the microphone issues. I'll get that sorted out by next time. Thank you, and have a great time. Let me know what you think about Avengers Infinity War.